what we want to really focus on here today, first of all, are core values and how those really emphasize who you are and how they impact everything that you do in your business and how they lead to things like team and culture and how those come together as important components of ultimately building processes into your business, which, you can build in Trainual, which is awesome, but making sure you have those and that they are done effectively. We are so pumped to have Grayson here with us because that's his bread and butter. He's so good at this. We've been chatting with him for a couple of weeks now and really, really, really excited to have him here. So I'm going to turn it over to Mallory to introduce Grayson and we'll go from there.
So I feel like there was a point in time, if you're out in the LinkedIn community, where you could not scroll the feed without seeing somebody sharing something about the Grove Cookie Company and the cookies and just the incredible work that Grayson and the team were doing at Grove. And it was so interesting to me because the feed was full of cookies, but truthfully, the messages behind everybody sharing their cookies was community, culture, values, and really just talking about how Grove was shining in those areas. And so I am so beyond excited to welcome the founder of Grove Cookie Company and the trademark influencer of Cookies as a Service, which is genius, to the discussion today. So welcome, Grayson. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mallory. And thank you, Shawn, for having me. It's quite the honor because, we use Trainual, obviously, and big champions of it. And it's really just cool to be highlighted here and to share our experience using the platform and really how it's benefited us. A little background on our company. We launched in January of 2021. Really, my wife thought it'd be fun to sell cookies from our house. And the good husband I am, I, of course, obliged and said, why don't we do it? And it was just really unique. Again, from our townhouse, we were just doing fun things with the cookies. And then all of a sudden we got introduced to B2B gifting. So corporate gifting. And then over the past year and a half, we've been intertwined into the tech community as far as prospect and client gifting on a more rapid pace, if you will. So
I love that your business was started because of your wife's idea, and you have put your love and passion and just emphasis around bringing her idea to life. I think that says a lot about you. And a lot about how you care for your team and your employees. So I'm really excited to just dive into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too. So,
all right. So first things up, as you continue to see, obviously, pretty incredible growth at Grove, how do Grove's missions and values impact the team's targets and subsequent performance when things are growing and changing so quickly?
Gosh, it's really honing in on our core values. So right from the beginning, during our hiring process, we're obviously a cookie company and our first hires were all bakers. I still kind of take over the sales and marketing, but being as those positions are, very straightforward in a sense, there's no real KPIs to grade someone on with baking. So it's just really important. And I think that's for any position really that I'm learning as I go, it is maintaining those core values. So relationships, teamwork, joy, enthusiasm, and excellence. I mean, those are just first things first. In the interview, when they apply, like on Indeed or through our website, it's a must fill form that they have to kind of give their feedback on what teamwork and enthusiasm mean to them, and that's just a great filter to kind of, again, all that the core values just drive home what we're doing here at Grove Cookie Company.
I remember you mentioned that as you do your reviews with your team members, there are a couple of the core values that you highlight on a regular basis that are like core values, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to have you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Teamwork and enthusiasm. That's just every day. They walk through the door right there, the front door that you saw in that previous photo. That's what they're graded on a daily basis. Like, I don't need to sit down and talk to them about that. Our bakery manager has, the authority to kind of gauge that and, bring, if someone's having a bad day, we totally are understanding of that, but we just drive the teamwork and enthusiasm very hard because we're a small team, we're 5 people. And, on top of that, it affects the day-to-day operations here at Grove Cookie Company. When someone's, you start getting the repetitive, like, lack of enthusiasm. I'm a big feeder of enthusiasm. Like, I feed off of it. And so it's just a great, those 2 core values are really drive home the mission that we're on. So
I love that. I think sometimes when you see really generic and core values, and I'm sorry to anyone listening if you're like, oh my gosh, that's one of our core values. I think some people can do it the right way, but a lot of times you see like really generic ones where it's like trust, integrity, hard work, like all these catchwords. And you're like, well, I think all humans should have integrity and all humans should be trustworthy, right? And all humans should probably work hard if they're on your team. And I love that yours are all related to your team's character, building relationships, being a good teammate, having joy and enthusiasm, and being a positive light to those around you. And just excellence is being resourceful, making ideas happen, which is one of Trainual's core values. And so I really love that you're emphasizing the character of your team for success. And I'm curious how that feeds into what your culture looks like and how that supports your processes.
Yeah. So just to touch on the core values, it was really easy to come up with them because that's just my wife and I. That's the foundation of our relationship and who we are as people. So that definitely helps with the core values, having that. But the question was, how does it influence like processes?
Yeah. So how does it influence your culture? And then how does that culture feed into how people develop your processes, right? So if I'm looking at your processes, am I seeing a joyful, enthusiastic team? Am I seeing teamwork? Am I seeing ownership and relationship? How are you embedding that culture into your processes? And really, what does that culture look and feel like based on these core values?
Yeah. I mean, the way writing a process works, the core values guide the process, right? So if you're writing a customer success focused process, I just spent two weekends ago, I spent the weekend using Trainual and the AI component of Trainual, and also my own knowledge, kind of transferring that relationship aspect, because our company is so focused on relationships. We're a B2B cookie company that is not a normal cookie company by any means. And when you're dealing with relationships, again, you could be dealing with financial advisors, you could be dealing with a Fortune 500 company. Those core values just, are ingrained in how you communicate with someone. And I'm focused more on the customer success right now, but teamwork moves right into that too as well. From a collaboration standpoint, we work really hard to make the process of ordering, especially we get bulk orders. So if no one's really familiar with corporate gifting, you can get a 400 to 500 dozen cookie order like that. So traditionally that takes a lot of preparation on behalf of the corporation ordering. Well, when it comes time to ordering, we want it to be as fluid and seamless as possible. So collaboration is big on that part. And then joy and enthusiasm, they almost are the same word, but they're not. Joy, really is how we're presenting our company. So again, you go through your processes and you're instructing, a team member. Like, we just hired on our first front office coordinator. So she's going to be taking over my roles on some of these customer success aspects. So she's a joyful person. She made it through the interview process, but, just highlighting some of the things that I do that I don't even know, that sets us apart right? So I get a lot of feedback of like, wow, it was like really like enjoyable working with you guys like this holiday season or the past holiday season. And it takes some reflection of like, what did I do? I don't know what I did. Oh, I responded to you in like 3 minutes. So, it's like most people are like, so now you start putting in these processes, right? Like, okay, you need to be like responsive. You could call them a KPI, but utilizing the software we have, HubSpot, you can start putting in these like filters on how the customer success workflow should look. So that's a good one. Enthusiasm. Geez. I mean, I don't know. I just get hyped up. Hopefully people feel it through the Zoom call.
We definitely feel it. We've got a ton of questions coming in as well.
Okay, sorry. And then enthusiasm is just, that's a hard one to do, but it's moving. It's trying to get people to understand our forward facing attitude. And then excellence. I mean, we're making sure the end result is what the customer wants. So
love that. There's a few of these questions are right in line with these values. They're
okay.
Really, this is awesome. So Dan says, hey, have you ever hired someone that ended up not having the teamwork or enthusiasm? If so, what happened to them?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had that experience
yeah.
yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we had a little, the first person we had to, that didn't live up to our core values. It was more of like an HR issue, and we don't have an HR team. So I turned into HR professional. And that was tough. Yeah. We had to let her go. It was a tough one, like what happened, it didn't require like me to follow up. Right. It was just like a bad situation. It just needed to be moved on. Right. But we have processes in place for, say, someone's like enthusiasm is lacking, and like our bakery manager informs me, or I notice it. We have one-on-ones, right? So we have monthly one-on-ones with the junior level, and then our bakery manager has a weekly one-on-one. So it's really using the teamwork enthusiasm core as our guiding principle, and just the process we have in place using a software called ClickUp. It's just a check, right? You're just an attitude check, right? So that's how it's. I don't know how to answer that one. That's how we kind of encompass that grading system.
Well, I love that you just talked about ClickUp, and Yashira Lindsay just said, "How do you cultivate enthusiasm?" I mean, there's some that just it seems very natural because of who you guys are and what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, who has a bad time like making cookies? I mean, seriously, right? But I mean, right? But how do you cultivate that enthusiasm and continue that? And it also leads to the next question from Luce is, how do you avoid the toxic work environment in the workplace? Because even when you have a strong company culture and you're enthusiastic all the time, you can still have some of those issues that can come in. So, how do you deal with that as well?
Gosh, the monthly check-ins have been a huge help. So, not to go off the rails here, but we've had a business coach for the last year and a half she's eMyth certified coach. I know Trainual, big eMyth. That's been a huge help, because what she does, we haven't had a meeting in like a month and a half, and I'm like kind of freaking out because I'm not being pushed to try new things. Well, she pushed us to start these one-on-ones 2 months ago, and they've been a huge help. And just developing that process of dealing with a toxic employee. We've just been fortunate we haven't had that. They haven't made it through our interview system or our interview process to where we've had that, other than that one incident way back. But gosh, I mean, it's just instilling the enthusiasm vibe really comes from leadership. I'm really a big proponent of that. And I am the beacon of enthusiasm, because I could easily come into work every day and just be upset, but leadership is what dictates enthusiasm, and leadership is what creates the culture you guys have at Trainual. It's not bottoms up, it's a top down. I really am a believer in the top down enthusiasm aspect.
I love that. And I appreciate you for being vulnerable too and saying, it'd be easy for me to come in and be a stressed out new founder, new baby, right? Like all these things going on that could easily make it hard to, show your enthusiasm. You're tired and you're stressed and you have a lot of things going on. And so I really like that you keep going back to the process you have in place of that one-to-one, because I wholeheartedly believe that having a place to vent up and not out is how you contain when someone's having a bad day, and you keep that enthusiasm and that joy intact, is to keep it from spreading and say, hey, I understand that you're having a bad day. Like, put it on me. Let's talk about it. And being able to, sometimes it's just speaking it into existence helps you to like shed some of that and to bring your joy and enthusiasm back into frame and into light. So I really appreciate you calling that out and being vulnerable enough to like share that piece of yourself as well, because I think it would be so easy for some businesses to drive this so hard that it becomes toxic positivity. And people feel like, oh my God, I can't have a bad day, right? And you're saying, heck no, we all have bad days. I'd have a bad day every day if I didn't, and have a place to vent it out. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, happy to share.
All right. I think we had another question that I saw here too.
Dan said, is it possible to have quiet, introverted enthusiasm?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If Marie was here, she would tell you all about it. She's a very quiet individual. But she, she's happy as a clam. She's at home, obviously, with the child, little baby, and I'm here. But, small business land, no days off. So it's okay.
I was thinking about that when we first started, like, oh man, we should have had her come on. But yeah, like, I love that you're talking about, hey, you don't have to be the face of the business. You don't have to, have a personal brand and be driving enthusiasm and joy. You can just be joyful in the work that you're doing. I love that you're creating space for her to be joyful in the work that she's doing and to honor her introvertedness. So I think that's really beautiful. All right. We talked about core values. We talked about your incredibly sweet culture. I'm curious now how it all comes together and how you actually document your processes.
Yeah. Well, the pillars that really just help us write a process is what, when, why, who. Definitely the what is obviously self-explanatory. We have it up here on the board, but a process is in place is because, well, it needs a process, right? You can't build anything without a process. An engine doesn't work without really multiple parts moving in unison, right? I think that's been a great illustration for my mind to work. But describing the what, when, and then the why. The why has been crucial for us because, and I think for most business owners, they can comment on this, is we kind of get tunnel vision. So when you bring someone in who's new, it's hard. Well, you don't want to create an environment where they can't ask why. And you don't want to create an environment where they can't like provide input. So we do these custom GIF messages, and they're all like hand done. It's more copy paste than anything, but the logos and everything else that goes into it, there's just faster ways of doing it, but I don't know those. So we just brought in a new team member, Lily, and she's doing a great job. She just has more technical background. So I'm really empowering her to figure out, well, can we do this better and more efficient? So empowering her to ask why we're doing it this way. It does a great job of just bringing that out. And then when you go into the bakery side of things, where you kind of, dough and all that, and shipping, having people ask why are we using this tape? Why don't we use a better tape? Why are we using this box? Why don't we use a better box? We start bringing in more and more people. You're going to start getting more and more experiences, especially when you start hiring more seasoned talent. They're going to be coming from, experiences, whatever, let's just say Microsoft, their technological, expertise is going to be way more than me. So I don't want anyone to go, do this process because I said so. Well, here's why we do it. You know what? If you can figure out a better way to do it, let's make it happen. Right. And, who is involved is pretty straightforward in the sense of, well, this is what we use, whether it's a software or an individual to complete the task. So we've hired a virtual assistant in the past, that was, kind of signaling like how we've done it before. So we kind of keep an archive of like past processes, because I think that's pretty unique too. Just to kind of see where you've come from. Make sure they're clearly identified as archives. So that's kind of the 4 pillars of what we do here at Grove Cookie Company.
One thing just struck me that you said, and that is you do not want to create an environment where your employees can't or won't ask why. And I love that. What a way to encourage your people to help your processes get better, right? Like Luz asked, how do you allow your team to potentially improve a process? Has this happened to you as you grew your company?
How they have improved it? Sorry.
How do you allow your team to potentially improve a process that you're doing? Is that a possibility? And
how
does that look? What does that look like?
Yeah, I say, all right, do it. And if it works, let's document it. I'll get Trainual out here. I'll bring out my laptop or my iPad and I'll just reconfigure things or create a whole new one. It's like, it's really simple when you have a platform like Trainual, rather than trying to dig through 1,000 Google Sheets. You just have your, like the way we have it set up. It's just like, all right, here's the bakery, processes. Here's the one you want to adjust. Did it work? What was the efficiency? Right. You just kind of go through the process of like, is this like a valid reason to change the process? Of course, you want to, most people are coming to you to change the process because it is valid, but you just want to reconfirm that. So, what did they recently change? Oh, not to go into nuts and bolts of our business, but the way we transfer what orders need to be fulfilled today, for instance, we got to transfer it to an order sheet. We were doing it. I was printing off packing slips and they were just trying to like manage, 50, 80 packing slips. Well, we had all brainstormed and we came up with the order sheet, like basically a guide for the day. And it has all the order numbers, what the flavors are for those orders. And that's just the master sheet that moves from dough to baked to shipping. And then it's just, a master form rather than a bunch of paper. So that's an instance of a team coming together and changing a process.
I love that. That's such an awesome example. And I also love that you're talking about starting from current state. It's like one of the fundamental principles we learn in continuous improvement when we're helping businesses to improve is you really have to have a current state picture in order to improve and go anywhere. And so it was always hard to try to help companies who were just process resistant, because every time we would improve something, I felt like 3 or 6 months down the road, we were improving the same thing. And I'm like, if we would have just documented this, it would have stayed improved, but it would always fall apart because it wasn't documented. And it felt like people were on this hamster wheel of improve and don't document.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't get out and they couldn't move forward. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. And Dan asked a great question too. And he said, do you include the why as a step within your Trainual subject?
Yeah. If we had a picture, I'd show you, but the why is in there. Like, this is how we write a process. And it's really like when you like want to come up with a new one, like you just put like what, put in 4 words, when, put in 4 words, why, put in 3 or 4 words, who, put 3 or 4 words. That gives you the basis. Then you go through and you do the whole process, right? So it's like so simple when you do it that way. And then you use AI Compose in Trainual, and that spits out, the filler words. You fine tune that. Like, gosh, it's way too easy nowadays. I always laugh. I'm like, man, people had to like come up with all these like processes before a Trainual or AI or whatever. And it took us a long time. When we built out Trainual, there was no AI at that point. It did take a long time of like documenting as processes are working. But now with the what, when, why, who, plus AI Compose, we just have a great, just a better starting point, a baseline for sure. So
that's awesome. So we just had a question. I love this. Could we get a template of your format, Grayson? I was like,
yeah,
that's cool. I'll bet we could work together on something like that. Get that out.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at how simple it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we could probably work on that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so Dan asked another really good follow-up question in the same vein. And he said, is the who defined in the step or covered by the roles? And I imagine for the most part, the who, you're assigning ownership. That's a big piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Are you breaking down any additional context to who inside the step itself?
Yeah. Equipment. The individuals needed, where it lives in our we have categories. It's not very intensive, but we have bakery and then we have front office, and that's where the two different processes are housed, right, for the two different areas. The person, equipment. Yeah, that's kind of how the who is. That's the who context.
I feel like if we do a template for this, we're going to have to put a human emoji and a robot emoji next to the who, because I think it's so awesome and so important for people to remember that the who can be an automation tool. It can be, it can be a vendor. It can be equipment. I'm sure you guys have a ton of vendors that are the who in your processes. So note to self on the emoji callouts.
One, just the perfect example is the one-on-ones. We talked about one-on-ones. The who is bakery manager or leader, me, and ClickUp. Because ClickUp houses our form, and ClickUp has a link in Trainual that we just put in there, and it goes boom, and it just takes you right to my forms that I use for our one-on-ones.
I love that specificity.
It's too simple.
So great.
Yeah. And then I don't have to remember. That's probably the best part about writing a process for a small team of our size, because we do so much, or I do, is I don't have to remember anything. I just go, wait, I'm doing one-on-ones. Oh, shoot. Boom, boom, boom. I'm ready.
Okay. So real quick question based on that is, obviously you're planning on continuing to grow. You got 5 people right now. So how do you see this, what you've been doing right now, impacting your future growth?
Well, a lot. So the person we just hired, Lily, who took over our custom gift messages, shipping, all that, if she's around longer, she would become the manager of that. And then now you would have 3 people or 2 people underneath her, whether that's VAs, virtual assistants, or actual team members. It just is a building block. That's how I envision it. Yeah. Time will tell if that actually works out, but I don't see how it doesn't work out if it's worked out so far, right? You're just adding a layer, obviously complexity, but yeah. So, that's my answer. I don't know if that's the best, but we'll see.
Grayson, thanks so much for being here. Let's start our takeaways for today here. Look, we kind of went over them in the beginning, but fleshed them out a little bit. Core values inform performance, right? We talked about how crucial that was. And Grayson, you mentioned that, how everything is tied back to those core values and how those actually drive all the way to the point of building out the process. We talked about the culture and how that informs the processes as well. And ultimately, again, this process of what, when, why, who. I love that simplicity of how you overview what the process is going to look like. How easy is that for your team? And again, as you continue to grow, your future team, that's the whole point of documenting this, is that way you have it in there for the future, for your team members of the future. That way they can do things the right way. So there we go. Those are the three main takeaways that we had for our session here today. Anything else there, Grayson?
No, that what, when, why, who is something I learned from a LinkedIn post or maybe Instagram. So, there's knowledge everywhere. So if you're not using the platforms for like a knowledge base, I mean, you should. And I have that actually saved in Trainual. Just so no one thinks I'm the evil genius behind all this stuff. It's like, well, here's where I got it from. So if I already forgot who the guy is, but I have it saved here in Trainual, the post. So now I can go find him again and see if he's put out anything else that's unique. He was a business, entrepreneur of some sort. So
I love that. Giving credit where it's due.
Yeah.
In talking with you and preparing for this session, and I too, as you know, share out in the LinkedIn community. And this is one of my favorite ones that I try to touch on maybe like every 6 months or so, because I really believe it. And it's something that drives me in the business world. And so I really wanted to share it with this audience today, just based on everything that Grayson has so graciously shared with us about his business and starting and founding Grove. And that's that good systems, right? So he talked about the automation tools. He talked about the processes. He talked about documentation and one-to-ones and all of the things that go into his business that are systematized, plus good values and leadership. He said, I hire people who are like me and my wife and have joy and enthusiasm and who live positively. And he truly believes that your culture is top down. So how he behaves, how his wife carries herself, and all of the people that they hire will influence Grove for years to come as they get bigger and bigger. And so good values and good leadership, and that equals good culture. And that is how the cookie crumbles, folks. I was dying to say that.
Nice. You got to get them in.
You did it. Nice job, Mallory.
I love it. In.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, we are here. We'll answer any other questions you have, Mallory, myself, and of course Grayson, as we wrap up our session here today. So feel free to keep popping those into the chat. I know I'm still laughing about the cookie crumbles, but that's awesome. Grayson, thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate you. And let's see if there are any other questions that have come up. I think just one from Dan. Do you have your core values in your company page in Trainual?
Yeah. I mean, that's their onboarding. So we didn't touch on onboarding, but that's a fun one. So we have a whole onboarding, their first 2 hours here are spent with me, and they're on the iPad with me, and we're going over core values, what, everything we do. Because really the onboarding process is what sets the tone for your company, and you let that one lapse. I mean, our most recent hire Lily, I'm asking her for feedback. And, the feedback I got from her was, you guys are well put together. I was like, well, what were you expecting? I want to see what she was expecting when she, hired, or when she applied and all that. And, that onboarding process, on top of just core values, here they are. They're the first things we talk about, sets the tone.
So Grayson, you just said something that I want everyone to make sure they heard. So it sounds like when people start with, and they're doing their onboarding, you're not sticking them in a dark room with Trainual all by themselves.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope. They're with me.
So they're working with you side by side. They're going through some of their content with you, and you're discussing things together, right?
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, over time, that will be handed off to the bakery manager, and she'll, he or she would be, in charge of that. And, that process would be a handoff from me to her or him. And that would be its own process. Right. So, it just keeps rolling along. So, yeah.
I love that. I think there's tremendous value in that approach that I think is the stuff of a future inside the process, Mallory. So well, we can talk about that one. Grayson, that is fantastic. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Trainual makes it easy and fun. I literally say it all the time. It makes it, I don't know, it's just the way the user experience is, but it like actually makes it enjoyable. So thank you both. And
I think that's such a good highlight, because fun and experiences, creating awesome experiences and having fun is one of our core values. And so I'm glad that that's being fed from our leadership to our people, to our product, and to you as the folks who experience it. So I think that is an excellent way to end this message today. If you guys have any other questions for myself, for Shawn, for Grayson, we can pass those along and get you those answers. We thank you guys so much for being here today. And thank you, Grayson, for extending your time to us so graciously. We appreciate you. And we look forward to seeing lots and lots of cookie magic on the LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, thank you both, and really appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Let's give it up for Grayson, everybody. Get those hands or the clapping emojis and all the smiley faces and all that good stuff. There we go. Yep. Woo! Everyone's out there.
Yeah.
From Venezuela to California and everywhere. Grayson, thank you so much for being here. You're awesome.
Really appreciate it, Shawn and Mallory. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Jamaica too. Look at that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Jamaica. Wow, that's awesome. Very cool. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you everybody later. Bye now.